Here. It's Brian Foster. We're here streaming live on Sunday, September 8th at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, all time zones in between, all time zones around the world. We are here bringing you more information about Spiritism and different aspects of Spiritism. And of course, I have here up on the screen Allan Kardec, The Spirits Book. And I'd like to remind everybody on Netflix, there is the Allan Kardec movie. I would recommend that for everybody. It is just, if you have Netflix, it is wonderful. It will teach you a lot about Allan Kardec, what he did, how organized he was in using many mediums to speak to high spirits and only using the information if more than one or two mediums in different geographical areas agreed on what the message was. He was very organized, and it's just an excellent movie. I would appreciate for everyone to look at that if you have Netflix. The Spirits Book is, Allan Kardec is the codifier of the Spirits Book, and from his work, hello Barry, from his work, everything else spawned. He wrote more books. You can get all of his books on PDF. Then there was Leon Denis, Von Piera, Chico Xavier, Devaldo Franco, Reverend Chiva Owen, and more mediums. Oh, and Barry says, I saw the movie. Let's put that up for everybody so everybody can see that you've had your first. There you go. I saw the movie. It was great. So you don't have to depend on me. Now, talking about not depending on me, tonight, what are we talking about? We're talking about marriage and couples. And full disclosure, I've had failed relationships, failed marriage. So don't do as I did. Do as I'm telling you and I'm doing now. Hopefully, I've gotten better since I've discovered Spiritism. Actually, I was married before I discovered Spiritism. My wife and I discovered it together, and we were very lucky in that part. And so anyway, I'm in a good relationship now, but I want to make sure everybody knows I haven't been anywhere near what I should have been. I'm sure I was very unsatisfying. So, but let's talk about now. Well, first, before we talk about that, let's get to what we're kind of the theme we have in the last couple of weeks. The theme is that we go through trials. We go through trials because of what we've done in the past. And that's why I have written the book, The Problem is the Solution, 7 Life Complications Sent to Test and Teach You. And basically, the theme of this book is that the trials and tribulations, the vicissitudes of life you're going through aren't there for punishment, mostly aren't there because of random factors. They are there because the spirit world is trying to modify your character and your personality. They're trying to teach you to become a better person. And why is all this happening? Well, there's a very good reason for that. And that is really one of the drivers of our lives. And what's that driver? It's karma. Let me bring that up here. Oh, wrong way. Oh, and there's Lawrence says, The Problem is the Solution. That's a really great book. I loved it. Well, thank you, Lawrence. I appreciate you being on tonight, too. There's a lot of people here on tonight. So why did I write The Problem Solution? Because one day I had an epiphany, actually, because my wife said, that problem's there for a reason. And I said, oh, yeah. Because I was whining about something, which I tell everybody you shouldn't do. Of course, I've done it. I've gotten better. But then I said, yes, the problem is the solution. And why? Well, because karma, the process, is there. It's there to modify ourselves. Now, let me go. Why do I have to put up with karma, right? Why do I have to go through this? There's a good reason. And this is what I try and make sure. The reason is when you rise into the spirit world, you will have unimaginable power. Not right away in the lower levels of heaven, but remember, in the spirit world, thought is action. I have not read. Yes, Lawrence says karma, the will of cause creating effects of agony versus bliss. And that's exactly true. I have not ever read a science fiction or fantasy book with as much power as I have read of how what high spirits have in heaven, right? Jesus Christ created our solar system, put the moon into place, all that. It's the power is immense. So if the power is immense, doesn't that mean we have to be pretty responsible? Not just pretty, but extremely responsible, extremely disciplined. We must take away all the primitive emotions away from our character and replace those with advanced love, charity, fraternity, honesty, patience, everything. So what karma does is that our life is recorded, right? Our current life results from our current life are recorded and studied to make our next life. So let me warn everybody right now, how you want your next life to be, it's all, well, not maybe all, but it mainly depends on how your life is today, right? And the third wheel is your future life. Your present life is recorded and be used to determine your next life. So it's pretty straightforward. The spirit world gives us pretty definite, you know, a wonderful process, and that they're telling us this process. And of course, the idea of reincarnation has come out in many different, Buddhism. Actually, it came in for the early Christians too, although from what the spirit world tells us, that was taken out because they didn't like the fact that, if you were a senator in Rome and you could have the possibility of being reincarnated as a slave. No, they didn't like that. So they wanted you to just stick in this world, right? And then what happened is in the Catholic Church and so forth, the priestly class took the power, and that's one of the reasons. And in fact, I had a great email from someone that sent me, how do we put the idea of people talking to spirits? I'm going off target here for a second, but let me just go through this because it's very topical. And yes, and the Catholic religion is correct in saying you have to be very careful. Well, they say you don't at all, but they warn people don't do that. And there's very good reason for that. Even Allan Kardec says, don't just start talking to spirits. That's why he wrote the Mediums book, is so you can be prepared. You have to study. In Spiritist centers, there's classes. They take it like about a year for you to become a medium. And then you're in a group. Never try to talk to spirits by yourself because you may not know who you're getting. Plus, in the Spiritist meetings, which I've been in, there are spirit mentors. Of course, I can't see. I'm not a medium, but they will protect the room. They will only let spirits in that should be in that room. Once they're going to talk to you, they still may need help, etc. But they're in control of the situation. Believe me, that is not something you want to do. So now let's talk about what we're talking about tonight: marriage and couples. So this is from The Problem is the Solution. Now, as I said before, I have not been perfect, but let's talk about the ideal. Now, the ideal situation of a marriage between two souls is one that many of us strive to attain. It is a state of mutual love and respect, a perfect harmony of existence, a place where positive actions and thoughts serve to increase the potential of each partner, where 1 + 1 is greater than the 2. We are told in the book Spiritual Wisdom, Missives of Hope by Francisco Chico Xavier, that it is imperative for spouses to learn to understand each other in order to develop in themselves the noble qualities that the other possesses, thereby transforming the companion's less fortunate tendencies into aspirations for a better life. Very good quote. So whereas we are on the planet to fulfill a biological necessity, families and marriage play a vital part in this. We are also here for the moral and divine law of love for the spiritual evolution of human beings. It is this task, this great mission, which makes marriage vitally essential, for we are not only marooned on earth for our own edification, but also to help others grow. Now, I want to talk about marriage for a second. So according to Spiritism, marriage is between two souls. And when Allan Kardec codified in Spiritism in the 1850s, and questions were asked about marriage, and no answers were the words male and female used, only that marriage is between two spirits. And given, again in the spirit books, that spirits may be reincarnated as male or female, marriage is defined as between two humans of whatever gender who wish to mutually support and love each other. Spiritual advancement is the prima facie reason we are on earth, and toward that goal, we are often blessed with a partner who will be irreplaceable in our efforts to repair our defects. Nothing is better than finding the soulmate that facilitates spiritual growth, where each half has unique strength, which bolster the process to erase the blemishes in the other. No one member is perfect, no matter, I'm sure we've all thought, I'm the perfect one in this marriage, right? But then you start thinking some more, and you may think of one or two things that you may have done wrong. So, but hey, if you were perfect, you wouldn't be here on earth. I got news for you. So hence constant support is the foundation of a marriage. The daily lessons of love, forgiveness, patience, and honesty, which are paramount in a good marriage, are exactly the qualities we are put on earth to attain. Now, so many people say, I want to know if I can find my soulmate. In fact, actually, I did a video on that on YouTube and BitChute. You might want to look that up for soulmates. They may be here, they may not be here. There's all depends on what we're supposed to learn. But it is somewhat of a universal desire to find our soulmate. They do exist. In fact, Spiritist literature gives accounts of many couples who have been reincarnated together in life after life. In fact, I know my wife and I were married in previous lives. So, one example was revealed in the book written by the spirit Andre Louise. In the book No Solar, Andre talks to Laura and find out she had married Ricardo, and he had passed away when she was still quite young. She told Andre this: I had gone through a time of intense struggle during my widowhood because I was still a very young girl with children to raise and had to work at a hard job to make ends meet. It was very difficult, but I provided the offspring of our union with all the educational values at my disposal, although they too had to adapt to working hard at an early age. I understood later that my toilsome life had sheltered me from many dangerous temptations, and thus had ensured that I wouldn't have to experience the indecision and anguish of the umbral. Now, the umbral is also called the lower zone. That is the sphere that spirits go to after death who have not accumulated the attributes of love and forgiveness to ascend into one of the heavenly spheres. Spirits will roam there, the band which lies between the surface of the earth and slightly above it, until they discover how to let the light of fraternity into their hearts. So Laura, she lost her husband early, but while she was surviving on earth, her husband was working for them both in the celestial city of No Solar. Laura tells Andre the story. We were separated physically for 18 years, though we were always united spiritually. Ricardo, however, didn't rest during that time. When he was brought to No Solar after a period of extreme trouble, he immediately understood the need to work hard, and he began to prepare our future nest. Then, when I arrived, we settled down together in this house, which he had so carefully organized. We were truly happy together. At the time, my husband taught me everything he had learned. So, what we're seeing here is you can have your soulmate. They could be on earth or not on earth, but they could be one of you could be in the spirit world helping you. So all the while Laura was toiling through a life of poverty and self-sacrifice for her children, her husband was arranging a home for his true love, a love that didn't recognize the barriers of physical and spiritual worlds. Laura describes her feelings after her death when she re-encountered Ricardo. She said, meeting Ricardo again and building a new love nest made me feel as if I were in heaven. Well, she was in heaven. We lived together for many years in continual happiness, working on our evolution, growing closer and closer to each other, and taking part in the progress of our loved ones. After some time, her 3 children came to join them, and they were even happier than before. So eventually, the entire family was reunited in heaven. And as Laura and Ricardo recovered and learned more about the need to pay off past wrongs in order to ascend the levels of heaven, they looked back at their past memories. They found they had spent the last 300 years together. They also discovered they had performed many wrongs while on earth. Therefore, Ricardo and Laura planned to reincarnate and marry once more on earth. They planned to work diligently to improve their spirituality and to curb their selfish instincts during their next set of trials on the planet. Now beware, the process isn't always straightforward. I have met my soulmate, but only after, as I said before, one failed marriage and numerous other detours. How do I know my wife is my soulmate? Well, during our presence at a medium meetings in Rio de Janeiro, my wife and I were told we have been together previously, and this type of otherworldly verification may be hard for others to duplicate. But if you can check off the attributes of an ideal marriage, then you would be safe to assume that either you have been a couple in a past existence or are well on the way to starting a relationship which could last centuries. Now, just like Laura and Ricardo, my wife and I also found out that we have been extremely selfish in our past lives too. So just be prepared. Oh, Dania, hello everyone. So now let's talk about soulmates who have failed while on Earth. Now, this is a very interesting story. This is the story of Alfred and Ismailia. Now, this one isn't actually about their past lives. It's about their life in the spirit world after their incarnated lives. And the story illustrates that true love survives many trials and separations, and that if a couple are bonded together, no one deed, neither life nor death, keeps them apart for long. In the book, The Messengers, inspired by the spirit Andre Louis and psychographed by Francisco Xavier, there is a spirit Alfred who tells how, when he was incarnated, was a successful businessman. He threw himself into his business dealings and was quite wealthy. His negotiations and the running of his business was intense, which kept him away from his wife, Ismailia, and his children. He goes on to tell, and this is the great thing about the books and Andre Louis. Andre Louis interacts with so many people, and there's so many people talking to him about different aspects of their life, and there's so much revealed about the spirit world. So Andre tells Andre Louis this: Ismailia was a stronghold of my neglected family. Virtue, however, can always be tormented by vice, and I let my wife be sexually harassed by a disloyal friend, someone with whom I shared extensive business interests. Ismailia suffered in silence for years until he finally realized that he was getting nowhere with his immoral propositions. So, Alfred's business partner then started to persuade him that women in general weren't trustworthy. Slowly, Alfred's deceitful friend began zeroing in on Ismailia. The constant drone of the possibilities of Ismailia unfaithfulness started to wear Alfred down. So then Alfred would start watching the smallest detail and everything Ismailia did, and he'd analyze her behavior. And of course, he imagined the slightest deeds, and she performed to be proof of her guilt, right? And Ismailia, knowing Alfred's friendship for his business partner, she never revealed the story of the unwanted sexual advances to Alfred. She suffered in silence. What a wonderful woman. As usual in these cases, when there is a breakdown in communication, Alfred became a tyrant around the house, and he would accuse her of being unfaithful. She only responded in silence. So then Alfred tells of his partner's next deed. So finally, not pleased with his results, my business associate hired a stranger to invade our home and remain in hiding in the room next door to our bedroom. I noticed something out of the ordinary and burst into the bedroom like a madman. Ismailia, who had been lying in the bed, begged me to calm down while I tore the room apart, looking for her supposed lover. Suddenly, I saw the shadow of the stranger who fled from the room next door, out of the window and into the garden, without my having been able to get a hold of him. I ran behind him with my gun, shooting in different directions, but did not hit him. So Alfred, finally releasing his pent-up anger from many months, thought of killing Ismailia, but something stopped him from pulling the trigger. Of course, that was probably the spirit letting him do the really terrible thing. He arranged, but what he did was very cool. He arranged to take complete custody of the children and send Ismailia back to her parents' farm. She was not allowed to see the children again. Of course, this was probably a long time ago when women did not have the rights that they did now. So Alfred went alone to Europe to recover from discovery. He arranged for the children to be taken care of by governors. He made no attempt to find out the truth or get in touch with Ismailia. After 2 years in Europe, Alfred was in France when he received a letter that after complete abandonment, she fell ill and died of tuberculosis. Now, how tragic are our actions when we do not possess the capacity to love unconditionally? Spiritism teaches us that all of us have at one time or another played the victim and the betrayer. None of us are undeserving of sympathy. Now, this is the real crux of the case. Alfred spent many years concentrating on his business and his children. He tried to repress the past. Oh, hello, Jennifer. He tried to repress the past and forget all that had happened until one day, and this is what he said, years went by until one day I was summoned to the home of my own business associate, who was on his deathbed, then and there. So as Lawrence says, when truth is diminished, thus follows the love. Yes, to me, that is what this story is saying. The truth of love is codependent upon the love of truth. Very good comment. So that's what he said. One day, this is what he's getting the truth, right? But you should always know that the truth of love is love. Hello, Suzanne. So, years went by. Alfred was summoned to the home of his old business associate who was on his deathbed. Then he confessed what he had done, how he had harassed Ismaili and tricked me. He begged for my forgiveness, but I couldn't give it. I was devastated. That confession hit me hard. From that day on, my life was that of a madman. I tried somehow to amend the effects of my wrongdoing by explaining the facts to Ismaili's parents, and after some time, I also returned to the spirit world laden with guilt in very poor spiritual condition. Of course, that's what happens when we don't let go of revenge and guilt. So after his death, Alfred spent some time wandering about aimlessly in the lower zone, the place, of course, between the celestial cities and Earth. But he was so preoccupied by the leftover earthly worries, or never considered the possibility of the afterlife. So a lot of them are unable to look up and see the plan for perfection before their eyes. Now, Ismaili was there next to him. He could not see her. He was still locked onto the earth. He was still into what he had done wrong. This is why, as I tell everybody, when people do you wrong, it's because of something that occurred in a past life. Now, it could be that you have done that person something wrong, and they're doing it to you now, so you know how it feels. Or it could be that they're just another person that's doing you wrong, just so you understand what it felt like. So whatever there is, there's two things I think everybody should remember. One is, if that person is doing you wrong, that's not your problem to show them their mistake. The spirit world, through karma, will show them their mistake. Number two, that person is an actor. You need to consider that person as an actor in the play. That person was there being used by the spirit world to teach you a valuable lesson for your edification. When there's a play and there's a bad guy and a good guy and they fight and they say mean words or whatever, right? Or a couple, after the play's done, they meet each other in the bar and they're friends. Same thing should be for us. We're on Earth. We're in this, could be a drama or a farce, right? That just look at that person as an actor. That person's put there for a reason, for your edification. Even though it may not seem like it at the time, don't take it personally. So Alfred finally said, in the lower zone, he soon saw himself protected. And she followed his steps closely, right? And of course, she's a dweller of a higher plane. So what he's done is Alfred is in an outpost. And the outpost that Alfred mentions is located in the lower zones where good Samaritans find lost souls, those that don't realize they have passed away. So Alfred was rescued into this kind of outpost in the lower zone, not into one of the levels of heaven yet. And in those, they help those poor spirits who are still attached to life on earth and didn't realize the need to move on. So then Andre asked Alfred, why couldn't Ismaili come down and help Alfred permanently instead of just coming down every so often? So Alfred tells Andre that his and Ismaili's superior guides recommend that Alfred first rightly learn to appreciate what God has given to him and to not thrust it aside so easily. This is what Alfred tells Andre. I am the one who must learn how to elevate myself, and it's for this reason that we haven't had permission to remain together yet. I am paying the right price for my hastiness because of my impulsiveness. I lost my inner peace, my home, and my wonderful wife. I did not kill, I did not steal, but I feel as if I poisoned myself. Slander is an invisible monster which spreads poison through undiscerning ears and eyes. So this whole episode probably happened, and it doesn't say so in the book. This is my thinking. It happened because this happened before. Do any of these ancient speak? Lawrence says, do any of these ancient writers speak to the archetypes that Carl Jung was famous for writing about? I haven't noticed that directly, Lawrence, so I do not know. And it may have happened, and it didn't come within my purvey of focusing on that at this point in time. And hello, soul. So probably the same things may have happened before, where one didn't trust the other. Probably, Alfred. And they tried it again. It's just like suicide. If someone commits suicide, they'll have that urge to commit suicide again at the same age. And this may have happened before, where they did not trust Alfred did not trust his wife. And now he's really learning that would be part of his inner personality. And hopefully the next life they're together, that he will be much more trusting and loving. So, of course, now, being married isn't easy, right? Even to your soulmate. Yes, and Laura said hero, villain, and victim issues. Yes, I mean, they're all there. And I think they're all used. I think, and one could be a hero and one could be a villain, and a hero to some and a villain to others, depending on how their life is programmed, right? The blueprint of their life. It's the intersections of lives. This is one of the things that hits you, and this is what I'm trying to get across with my book, The Problem is the Solution. There are so many intersections, right? That our lives hit so many people, and it could be good, it could be bad, but they're all there. It's so important. So being married, even to your soulmate, isn't easy. And those who think we have our soulmate, we know that, right? It doesn't mean both will experience the same trials and tribulations. And after all, each has passed certain classes and others have been failed. One may have committed more wrongs to pay back versus a relatively charitable life lived by their partner. We are told in the book, Spiritual Wisdom, Missives of Hope, clearly we all have profound attachments, frustrations, idiosyncrasies, and difficulties. Reincarnation unquestionably apprises of all of them when it indicates which directions those aspects take within the familial setting in accordance with the mechanisms of life that terrestrial experience motivates us to readjust. For this reason, every couple and every domestic organization expose sensitive areas of interconnected problems that we must know how to avoid or address for the future to bring us solutions of irrevocable harmony. So the main takeaways passage is the word to avoid. Many of us, I know I do, would like to change certain aspects about our beloved spouse, but we must recognize they may not be ready to tackle that particular problem. Knowing that we have an eternity to rebuild ourselves should allow for a greater forbearance for traits which may not be attractive in our eyes. Letting it go until the next life may be a sound strategy in many circumstances. In the book, and I talk about this in my series of 3 books, Heaven and Below, Spirits in the Spirit Universe, and How We Are Guided by Spirits. It was told to Reverend G. Val Owen that when the spirit world, under the governorship of Jesus Christ, made our living, that we could, the humans race, right, we could have been asexual. But we were put into 2 sexes for a very good reason. And the reason is for us to learn better. What they said in the book is that a male is kind of more the aggressive, and then there's passive and aggressive with the male in action, right? And then there's a woman who's somewhat a bit more passive, right? And emotional and all the lovely things, and they have their passive and aggressive ways of dealing with issues too. And that what we need to learn is all 4. That's also why sometimes we come in as different sexes too, right? We need to learn the passive aggressive like a male, and we need to learn the passive and aggressive as a female does, passive and aggressive. And we all know those are different. And that it's all important for us to understand all 4 aspects. Whereas if we were asexual creatures, it would be a little bit more difficult for us to learn all 4 aspects. So we were put into 2 sexes for periods of learning. So Danielle says, what to do when your partner has a completely wrong idea about Spiritism and because he and his family are devoted to a different religion. Well, that's a very good reason, and that's a wonderful question. And the answer is don't force it on them. And look, if they have a different religion, and I'll say most of the religions, they're trying to tell you to be a good person. Most religions live by the golden rule. That is wonderful. And that means if they're not ready for Spiritism, don't worry about it. Just let it pass. And when you're into a spirit world together, then you can talk about it in maybe your next life. But I would not make that, if, what Spiritist, what we're taught, is where you don't go to people and say, well, if you don't become a Spiritist, you're going to hell. No, Spiritism is you put the information in. Like if I have friends, right, and they'll say something, and they'll say, yeah, this is the kind of problem. And I might say something like something to do with reincarnation. And if they don't ask me anything like, well, what do you mean by that? Then I just know they're not interested, and I don't force myself on them. And I wouldn't do that if I had a spouse that, wasn't interested in Spiritism. I'd say, fine. It's, Spiritism is not easy. The concept of reincarnation and the concept of karma being absolutely real, put together with the concept of knowing that we are actually interplaying constantly with the spirit world, that's a great leap for many people, right? And I only made that leap because of something dramatic happening to me. And I know some people here who are already on my board talking to me, right? They've had dramatic things happening to them. They've made it, if it wasn't for these like a lot of people will have near death experiences, right? Then they go, oh, then it's that key happens, right? Now, some people, and I'm hoping maybe Danny, that's you knew it intuitively. Yeah, you brought that knowledge probably from your life. That was probably into your system much better. Oops. It just went. Oh, did I go silent? Can people not hear me? Hello? Oh, my microphone seems to be working. Can people tell me if they can hear me or not? Let me look. Well, it looks like the volume's here. Okay. Okay. Well, I'll keep going. It looks like it's recording. Sylvia says, blessing friends. So anyway, to answer your question, Dania, is I would not press it. Oh, Cindy says I can hear you. Okay, thank you. This may have been something with Lawrence. Okay, just want to make sure one never knows. So, where was I? Yes. Okay, good. So everybody can hear. So the point is, I'm trying to say, is that if you're next to someone under the responsibility of affection, do not demand, and this is kind of actually answers the question. This is what Emmanuel said to Chico Xavier. Do not demand from your companion the immediate presentation of the resources that, according to your personal views, the other would need to become the perfect company in the domestic environment. Neither expect your companion to reason in accordance with your own thoughts, for it does not licit to anyone to expect from others that which one cannot yet perform oneself. If you don't want to have cast upon your shoulders the imposition of a companion who, like you, has embraced the responsibilities of a union of two, it is only fair that you should not impose yourself on the other by placing your own head on the shoulders of your spouse, to whom you promise care and dedication. So let's take one of these to a very interesting case study of what they mean by care of dedication, because this story goes beyond anything that I would have thought, and this is very interesting. So an example of true understanding, of true dedication and companionship in a good marriage, of what the spirit world expects of us, was given in the book In the Domain of Mediumship, inspired by Andre Louise, psychographed by Francisco C. Xavier. There is a scene where a woman, Anasia, has asked for help from the spirit world. She's worried that her husband, Jovino, has found another woman. And during her sleep, when she's out of her body, a team of spirits led by all of us, accompanies Anisha to where Jovina, her husband, has met his girlfriend. So yes, he was going on a girl. So Anisha, in her spirit body, like she left her body right from the bed, sees the entire scene of her husband drinking and showing displays of affection with the other woman. She is furious and she cries and leaves the bar where she has witnessed her husband in the company of a rival. And then this is what the team leader tells her. He says, "Dear sister, please take hold of yourself. You have prayed so that you could receive spiritual assistance, and we have answered your call." So always be careful, right? When you ask for something, they may give it to you. He says, "Cheer up, don't lose hope." He goes, "Hope," she replied, "I'm the object of treason." And so the conversation them continued, and then he said, "Well, treason by whom?" He goes, "Well, by my husband who fell in his marriage promises." And then Alice tells her, "Do you believe that marriage is a simple excursion on earth? Dear friend, the home is a school where souls reunite to achieve individual regeneration, knowing that perfection is ours in the future. In educational establishments, there are professors and students. Don't you know that the best ones should help those marching behind?" So then she listened and she goes, "But," he goes, "No." He goes, "Are you forgetting that now is when your husband requires your understanding and affection? A woman should not always view her companion as the man she loves tenderly, but as a spiritual son who needs to be guided with understanding and sacrifice. Equally, a husband should not always contemplate his wife as the flower of his dreams, but rather as a daughter of his heart, who asks for tolerance and kindness, so that she can be taken from darkness to light." He says, "Anisha, look, love is not just rosy happiness and sweet response to sex. It is a light that shines in the height, inspiring the renunciation and unconditional pardon of those we love. Jovina is like a plant that God conveyed into your hands, and you must be a gardener. The plant will be attacked by parasites or deadly worms. However, there is no reason to fear if the gardener is attentive and vigilant." So this is what I love about the books by Andre Luis, is they constantly deliver the unexpected lesson, the Spiritist doctrine applied to the ultimate level. Can you imagine any anything on TV or something that would that someone would actually get that advice that shows that is going to a really next level, and not just unconditional love, right? Oh yeah, do it, but a constructive love, a love where each of us has a responsibility to guide not just strangers but our closest relations, people who have the capacity, to hurt us deeply, I should say. Because after all, who can hurt you the most? Well, it's your spouse, right? Because you want their love all the time. And when you think, and it may not be true, they may be having a bad day or something triggers them, when they say something mean, or in your mind it's mean to you, it hurts you a lot. And now, then some of us have to work separately, right? So, and there are cases where a loving spouse actively tries to help the other improve their next life. In Andres Luis's first book, No Solar, his mother is a higher spirit than Andre and tells him that his father is still in the lower zone under the spell of two women who were with him during their married life on Earth. She's planning to reincarnate, to marry him again, and to have his two mistresses as their daughters in their next life. And I can only imagine a complex relationship with the mother-daughter's-father triangle in that marriage. There are even more stories of assistance given. In the book Renunciation by Emmanuel, and Spirit Emmanuel, and psychographed by Chico Xavier, one of the main characters is Alcyone. She is a high spirit who lives in a celestial city. She requests permission to return to Earth so she may help her past love, Pollux. Currently, he is on a lower level, unaware of her whereabouts. He lives a desolate life as an errant spirit. She visits him just before he is scheduled to be reincarnated. She tries to prepare him for his next chance at redemption. And souls at his low state of advancements, those who still harbor material ties, feelings of envy, hate, revenge, the planning of a future life, is not done actually with his cooperation, but by higher authorities. And as Alcyone is talking to him, he has no idea what type of life he will be deposited into it. She asks that he try to stay the course, become a better person. So the novel, which is based on true events, this is what's great about Emmanuel's novels. Best, if one of the ones I would say, if you ever could read Paul and Stephen, which is about the Apostle Paul, his true life, what he went through. It's extremely interesting. So this novel is, of course, published with the permission of spirits involved, revolves around various characters and their destiny in life. And the two characters in which we focus on are never allowed to become man and wife. Alcione's past loves decides once again to become a priest to get out of his poverty. And of course, when he meets her, he wants to leave the priesthood, and she doesn't allow this, telling him he needs to stay true to his vows. And he's already failed in a previous life by going back on his word and discarding responsibilities, which an honorable man would uphold through thick and thin. And one can determine he's given the chance to prove that he can maintain his endurance on the hard path of life. And he's being challenged to learn that commitments are not to be broken easily, even in the face of overwhelming desire. And unfortunately, this isn't a pressing topic in our current culture, where leaving obligation is as easy as changing shoes. In fact, if you do constrict yourself to the path upon which you promised, many times you're considered a fool and a simpleton. Unbeknownst to many, those who fight through to finish what they regard as sacrosanct are rewarded, and those who don't will be required to participate in the lesson another time. Now, everything what I've said, I'm not saying to stay together no matter what. After all, I didn't. Only that one should try and to honestly say at the end of the day that you did your best. For many, a marriage is one of the trials. The presence of a soulmate may not be an option in this life. Your soulmate, as I said before, may be watching over you. In the book No Solar, Laura, who told us about her life with Ricardo, is talking to Henri Louise about marriage and the difficulty of life together. This is what she said. I thought this was very interesting. The majority of terrestrial couples spend their sacred hours of the day living indifferently and selfishly. When the husband is at ease, the wife seems desperate. When the wife keeps humbly silent, her companion tyrannizes her. The wife makes no attempt to encourage her husband along the horizontal line of his temporal work, nor does the husband try to accompany his companion on her divine flight of tenderness and sentiment towards the higher planes of creation. In social circles, they put on appearances, but in their private life, one takes long mental trips to faraway regions, while the other talks about work, which he says is very revealing. The spirit world doesn't condemn us to a life with an obstinate partner. And also the spirit world doesn't encourage us to try our best. Allan Kardec asked the spirits about divorce, which was considered unthinkable in the 1850s. And this is what he receives as answers. Question 697. Is the absolute indissoluble, I guess, of marriage to be found in the law of nature, or is it only an ordination of human law? And this is the answer. It is a human law, altogether contrary to the law of nature. But men may change their laws. Those of nature are alone unchangeable. So what are they being told? Either by design because of a needed lesson in life, or by a combination of wrong free will choices, you may have come to a point in your life where you must break with your partner. And when you do, please make sure to treat all honorably, even if the same consideration is not returned to you. Marriage is more often than just two people. It affects many. And on the subject of marriage and reincarnation in the book, Spiritual Wisdom, Mrs. Hope, this is what we are told. The responsibilities of marriage are not only applicable to spouses, but are also pertinent to the children and relatives from both sides. For this reason, and as Jesus taught, divorce is allowed in view of our hardened hearts. But those who are able to avoid it will be able to advance faster on the path of spiritual evolution. So what is he saying? Well, I believe it's most likely a failed marriage was probably a trial. And I can well imagine what a terrible and uncaring husband I must have been to innocent women in past lives. I am certain that I have had the exact first marriage that I deserved. Now I can look back and see my failures more clearly and see the episodes that most pain me are the result of my actions from previous lives. I now realize what I should do what I should never do again to anyone, no matter what the situation is. And learning the need to be a caring partner in a relationship and not just a self-interested bystander has been seared deep into my soul. What I had considered to be a hard time was actually a valuable training course, a curriculum in how not to behave. So, when it does come time to break the bonds that have kept the couple together, Emmanuel tells us best how to approach this challenging tribulation. This is what he says. For many people on earth, detachment in the emotional area represents a difficult trial. For instance, one separation from the familial unit, the distance from companionship, the moment of extrication of one individual from another. If you see yourself in this situation, therefore, in the position of releasing companions of ideals and affinities, do not waver in promoting the well being that awaits for your action. Those who yearn for independence and change after having shared their experiences with you are mendicants of tranquility and renewal. They do not have as much need for your gold or assistance, name or reputation, but rather plead above all for the foundations of tolerance and kindness, so they may be able to leave you without inciting the briars of resentment in your heart. So the very act of splitting, which has been melted together for many years, is a trial in itself. Know that if you're going through this, your attitude and ability to forgive without bitterness and accept the wishes of the other party, no matter how misguided you think it is a test of your spiritual talent as well. Accept what was previously unacceptable, forgive what was previously unforgivable, and you will grow 1,000-fold. So what you need to do is put your lessons in perspective. Look, life is hard. Marriage is hard. It's all meant to be. We're on this earth. We're in heaven. This is why we're being reincarnated. Heaven is not a good place to go through pain and suffering to make absolute changes to your personality and character. This is why God created the physical world, because in this physical world, we are just, as Socrates said, we're bombarded by thousands of emotions all the time. Socrates says you can't even think right on this planet, right? It's hard to focus for a moment. And he's absolutely correct, right? But it's all meant to be. We're not meant to come here on earth to become intellectual giants. We're here to reform ourselves, to tear out the primitive emotions. So therefore, what we've had in relationships, marriage, couples, whatever, it's all part of the training. And we're lucky to be here on earth and to be selected for it, because that means we are progressing. Keep this in your mind. Your dreams, which have been shattered, are but adolescent musings. When you were in the spirit realm before your present life, you had a real dream, and that was to improve in the next life, not just to be marginally better, but to make a great leap forward. The only method to improve your prospects is to live through the white heat of experience. We are not given physical bodies to improve our intellectual credentials, as I said before, but to construct an emotional buttress surrounding our loving heart, which we must use in all circumstances, in cool analytical situations and intense times of violent emotional warfare. Boy, that's hard. While we tend to think about the importance of our career and the material goods we possess and wish to acquire in the majority of our daydreaming hours, the real underlying lecture we are participating in is the raw give and take of how to manage a relationship. A smooth sail through an idyllic ocean of a peaceful marriage doesn't really teach us anything. Only via stress and turmoil can we grow. Now, according to us on the ground, forced to witness the drama and feel the effects, all this seems cruel and unnecessary. But imagine to a 5-year-old who is forced out of the comfort of his or her home in the strange world of kindergarten, that sudden disruption of a safe routine is also cruel. But in the scheme of things, over the years, the child shall grow to be ready for college and a career, and we, who are immortal spirits, will expand to be ready for more challenges and greater responsibility. The cruelty is really only in our own minds. We need to adjust and see the vicissitudes of life for what it is, a series of tests that we must pass if we are able to proceed. Think of what you have learned when you look back from all your trials. Don't believe for a second that you've lost a chance for happiness in your life. You haven't, because you are building toward a marvelous next life. Each hurdle you have jumped, each wave of insults you have suffered, has produced fundamental changes in your character. If you have met each challenge with understanding and compassion, you have been victorious beyond measure. Lucky you. You are building a solid foundation which will serve you for the rest of eternity. This is so important. The more we can learn, the better off we are. There's, the world really is made for our benefit. It's, we're being sent away to class. What else can I say? Now, if you'd like to learn more, I would recommend, let's go over this first. A great place if you want to learn more about Spiritism and you want to talk to somebody about Spiritism, you can go to my blog and look up Spiritist centers. But there's not that many Spiritist centers throughout the world yet, especially in the United States and in Europe. So you can always go to spiritismstudy.org. You can scroll down and click on a link that you can get an appointment, and you can talk to me directly. It will send me an email or someone else. Send me an email. I'll email you back and say, yes, you made an appointment at this particular time in your time zone. I can do that. And I will call you either via Skype or WhatsApp. And we can talk, picture to picture. Maybe not face to face, but picture of face to picture of face. So that may be something, if anyone out there, I would love. I have a great time talking to people, and there's nothing better than that. The other thing is, for those who like to hear what I'm saying, I post this video onto BitChute and YouTube, so you can watch the video. I also post the MP3 file to Spotify, and so I'm on audio. I have podcasts, so that's all there. You can look that up. Look up Spiritism, and in my BitChute channel and YouTube, look up Brian Foster Spiritism. You should be able to find it. And they also other on audio, I have on my audiobook. I did my first audiobook, The 7 Tenets of Spiritism. You can see that. Go to my blog, nwspiritism.com, and it will show you 3 different options for the 7 Tenets of Spiritism, where I talk about my own personal journey and what the signs and signals of Spiritism meant to me. And so it says, yes, the more we can learn, the better we are. Absolutely. So if you like audiobooks, I recommend that. And then lastly, of course, I always say first, always read Allan Kardec's books and Chico Xavier's book. But what I've done here on my series of 3 books, Heaven and Below, that's book 1, is I take this marvelous information from the Reverend Jiva Owen, and I try to categorize it and make it logical. And I take information from other Spiritist writers, Chico Xavier, Divaldo Franco, Leon Denis, Yvonne Pierre, other ones. And I try and say, okay, what's heaven? What do we know about heaven? What do we know about the organization of heaven? What does it mean to us? How we are educated? Do you know we don't go to heaven and we just don't sit on a cloud and play a harp, right? No, we go to school. It never. I hate to tell you, for some people, when you're glad that you're done with college, I never have to do that again. No, you have to learn forever, right? Got to keep going. This is an important part of our life on earth. We must always have that urge to be intellectually stimulated. Then my next book in the series is Spirits in the Spirit Universe. And this one really tells you what are the spirit attributes. And it lets you know that when you graduate from one level of heaven to another, you don't just get this piece of paper. You actually get more power. You get more capability, more attributes. Very interesting. It tells you a lot of what's out there. And so I write this not to say, oh, you have to learn this, right? No, it lays this information out for you on the table. And then you can decide for yourself, okay, how much self-discipline and motivation I can make for myself. Because what's awaiting for you out there is so fantastic that that's why, the spirits keep telling us, yeah, I think you should study. Because the more you study, the more you find the rationality of why you need to change yourself. And if you can will yourself, because your force of will is really everything you have. Then my last book in the series is How We Are Guided by Spirits. How has we've guided in the past, how we're going to be guided now on an individual basis, and then what's the future of Earth, right? And they discuss that. They discuss very interesting things. one of the things they say is that in the future, right, the Earth society will really be guided by women. And what they've said, I won't go over it right now in this one, but it's very enlightening. What they say is what the and kind of where we are right now, where women will get in the position of power, but then the kind of thing is, are they going to be in power just like men? That's like putting, as they said, that's putting, new wine in an old wineskin. No, they need to be different. It's very, very, very insightful. So that might interest a lot of people. So therefore, anyway, I want to just say that. And then, of course, I think the book that I think is to help you actually learn how to ascend is How to Live. And that is based on a 24 verse poem, very short stanzas, right? Very short, like Industrious Patience. That's one of the stanzas. You have to, and it just kind of goes in how we ascend, how we can get better, how we can improve ourselves so we're ready when we go back to heaven. We feel like, boy, I've done something really well. So, of course, you do what you want to do. You know best. I don't know best for you. Everyone has different learning methods. For some people, the books by Andre Luis is much better. They have, involve stories, and then you can get more information from that. That's what you should go for. If I kind of give you more information with stories and kind of try to expose this, kind of lay out what's there. It's all depends on your own learning ability. So at the end, please, if you'd like, please share this video. Tell your friends to other Facebook groups. Go to YouTube and BitChute. Please subscribe. Hit the bell. Share that video. Let me know what you're thinking. Again, go to spiritismstudy.org. I'd be happy to help anybody I can. And I want to say thanks for everyone listening to me tonight. I want to say God bless to everyone and have a good weekend. And that on Wednesday, I have a Facebook Live on my Facebook site, Spiritism in the Spirit World Around Us. Well, I am still talking about near-death experiences. And of course, and I'll be here back on Sunday, same time, same channel, Kardec Radio. And tell your friends about Kardec Radio, because this is also live on Kardec Radio. So I've talked enough. I'm going to say God bless everybody and good night.